All right, good morning. It's Mark coming to you from Baker's Green Acres. Today is the 5th of January, 2025. Woohoo! So, you haven't heard from me in a while, and there's nothing wrong. It's just during Christmas and New Year's, all my kids were home. Two of my sons that came home from the military brought prospective spouses with them, so that was different, and it took time, and we still had the farm to run, and operations, everything was still going on, so I just didn't have time. That's all it was. There was a bunch of times when I thought, I could make a video here and it would be kind of beneficial. But I just didn't get to it. So I am not a content creator. I do create content, but it's just because I'm passing on what goes on around here because I think it's of interest to people, and I think that decentralization of the food supply is paramount. I think that's very important. So it's what I can do. I work here every day and do what I got to do and run things the way they need to be run. But if once in a while I can take 5 minutes and pass some information on, that's the least I can do. And that's why I do it. And it's fun. It's just fun to share things. So what I wanted to talk about now was a situation that we have going on in the country. And that is this cold front that's sweeping across the southern part of the United States, or more like the central part of the United States. And I started seeing this last week, and I thought, ooh. And initially it was like, well, it's not me, so. But it could be, because it looks like it's right on target for Washington. And what that will mean is that a lot of the power that is normally used in the north here, electrical power, may have to be shifted down to the southern part because they will get it first. That's the capital, and they got to have it, or they think they have to have it, and they have the authority to take it, so they will. The way the power grid works is a lot of power is used in the south in the summertime for air conditioning, and then in the north for heating in the wintertime. So they flip it back and forth on the grid, and people in the north could be shortchanged on this deal, and which could mean that you won't get power all day long at your house or your farm. And I'm assuming that a lot of the people that listen to this channel are farm people. So when I saw this, I thought, well, I can ignore it. But then I started thinking about it, and I thought, I'm going to shift my priorities today. Today's Sunday. It's a real quiet day for me, and I keep it that way intentionally. I milk on Sunday, me and Jim milk, and so the milking's done. Everything's cleaned up. I've done walk-arounds in the property, and I've seen everything that needs to be done today, and I know what I'm going to be doing. And I had a couple minutes where I could stop and make a video. I'm not in the house right now. I'm in what used to be the old butcher shop. It's still the old butcher shop, but we don't use it for a butcher shop anymore. It's used for our store. So it's 50% complete. Some of the things that I had to change in here were I had to put a floor in. It had a concrete floor. I had to do some insulating because where it was a butcher shop before, we were never really concerned with getting it up to 70 degrees in here. But now that it's the store, we kind of like to have an environment when people step in here out of their car and walk across the driveway, that they step into a warm environment, and then they're more likely to, you have chicken for sale. Oh, you have ground pork you have hamburger for sale, not just milk. And so that's my goal, is to bring it up to the place where it's a very comfortable environment, especially when it's real cold out. It's cold out today. I think here we're at 15 or so, and we're looking at it getting much, much colder over the next 10 days. So that's kind of why my priorities shifted, was because I'm into this thing. And what it is it's called risk mitigation. Risk mitigation, because when something goes wrong, let's say a pipe freezes, or a faucet splits, or something of that nature because of the cold, then I have to fix that before I can milk. All right, now that seems kind of rudimentary, but that's reality. And I've learned that over time. And we don't have a plumber on standby to call up and say, get down here and get this fixed so we can milk. We have to do it ourselves. But better than fixing something like that would be not having it happen in the first place. So mitigate the risks. And you see this at every level of society, whether you're a Boy Scout or whether you're a Green Beret. You mitigate the risks. And a lot of times you don't know where the risks are. It takes tough times or adverse conditions to really find them. So an example, while the kids were home, we had a morning, we got up and I'm looking at the thermometer. We have one of those electronic thermometers, and that's probably the first thing I look at when I get up. And it was -12. And I was like, this thing must be low on batteries. That can be -12 out. I didn't see that. I didn't hear anything about that. You'd think somebody would say something that's coming. I did not know it was coming. And that's my fault. And that happened. It was totally my fault, but I got distracted with people being around and us having fun and, sitting around yakking and just living it up. So I didn't see it coming. And so when I came out in the morning, it's like, okay, let's go to this building first. Okay, everything's okay here. Go to the next building, which is the milk house, which it's a new build. I mean, it's an old build, but it's a new retrofit that was built in probably 1900. But the last time they had milk in there was probably the 50s. It was never insulated. It was meant to just the place where they kept the cans, and when they milked the cows, they dumped it in the cans, and they'd let them sit there until the wagon came, and then they'd load them on the wagon and they'd go. So they were never really concerned with bottling or anything like that in there. In the summertime, they cooled the milk in a water vat, right, which is not there anymore. So anyway, we rebuilt it, but we are running a slightly different operation than they were building in 1900, in that we put it in bottles, jars, ball jars, and then we send it out from there. It's a herd share program, all that stuff. I think people know about that. If they want raw milk, they can get raw milk. But there's more of a process. So anyway, we've built that out. We're not in there yet. There's still some bugs that have to be worked out of it. But the day that it went to 12 below and we didn't see it coming, I went down there and I turned the water on. Nothing. No water. No hot, no cold. So that was a problem. You can't leave a frozen pipe frozen. So the type of plumbing that we use now is called PEX. It's PVC, polyvinyl chloride. It comes in rolls. It's real easy to use. You have blue for cold, red for hot. It's pretty easy to run, but it's still subject to freezing. So we had to get pretty creative to run it through the barn in such a way that it wouldn't freeze. And we don't want to run heat tapes because heat tapes fail. You don't want to do any of that. You want to run it in a place where it's just not cold, no matter what happens. So we did the best we could, and there was a place where it came up into the milk house. The milk house at that time, I could heat it, but it wasn't fully insulated. So the heater, there was a propane heater in there, would have to run nearly constantly to keep it at 40 degrees. So that was then. Now, my guy that helps me, Matt Kovac, has been here and really getting a lot done. And we've got the roof has been insulated with R19, and then we covered that with old roofing steel. Actually, the steel that we took off the barn, we reused it inside. It looks pretty rustic, you know. It's got that rustic look I like. And then we blocked off a stairway. And so we're not going to have a freeze up again. We're not going to. We still have a little bit more to do. We have a couple walls that are concrete walls that I want to insulate and not have problems over there. But last night it was extremely cold when I got home. I took Keith to the airport last night, and I got home midnight. And so what I do to mitigate risks is before I go in to go to sleep, I walk around, and I have kind of a route that I go. If I have brand new calves, I need to look at them before I go to bed. If their ears are up and their eyes are bright and they're looking at me like, is it bottle time? Then I know that they're going to be okay by morning when I get back out again. I'll go into the different buildings, like we have a butcher shop has water in it, and I run a small heater in there just under the sink just to make sure. If that's running and I turn the water on and it's running, okay, that should make it till morning. I stop in the milk house, do the same thing, okay, and make sure all the doors are shut. Make sure that there's not some dog in there that doesn't belong in there. Anything that's out of place. Turn the lights off, maybe turn a light on for the milk cows. I make sure that they're bedded, and I leave a light on for them, believe it or not, because when they're walking around at night, if it's dark, they can misstep. So they need to be able to see. So I do my walk around and everything's fine. Okay, so what I think that we ought to look at right now in the north here, if I was down in the south, I'd be looking at alternate heat sources for my home, because they don't insulate real well down there. So I'd be thinking there could be problems in the, just pipes in the home or other places. I think I'd be looking at running the water, just trickling it so it doesn't have a chance to freeze up. I think I'd be looking at some way of just blasting heat into the home periodically, like a torpedo heater, or if you've got a wood stove, get that fired up and keep it running. That's what I do if I live there. Here, what I'm concerned with is we could have power down. Now, most of my systems don't require it. This building, I have a wood stove in here. And the first thing I do when I come out here in the morning is get a fire going. And then I blast it. I just let it run full tilt all day long. You'll come in here and you got to take clothes off. But what it does is it soaks the building with heat. And that way at night when it gets really cold and I don't really want to have a fire going down here, or don't need a fire going, mitigate the risk of maybe something happening with the fire going, I'll let it die down. But there's still a ton of heat in the building that's going to keep it warm enough. In the other side of this building, there's two rooms. I'll run a heater in there if it's going to be extremely cold. But that's just in the wintertime. That's just when it's extremely cold. If it's not extremely cold, I don't really need to do that. if I run this wood stove enough, I don't really need to do it. We really only have to be concerned with this for a few months out of the year. And even in those months, it's not extremely cold, and I don't need to be concerned with it nearly as much. I've learned how things perform here. The milk house, when it froze up, luckily I had two of my sons home that aren't normally here, and they're bulls when it comes to doing stuff. And I said, you guys, we don't have any choice. We've got to dig this all up. We got to figure out where that is, where that ice plug is. We got to find it. And so they just went to work with shovels and started digging, and they're joking and having a fun time. And yeah, we got it done. We found the ice plug. It was a place where the water came through the concrete into the milk house right there. So there was like a cold place in the concrete, and it froze right there in the concrete. So we had to break that new concrete out around it, and then I stuffed it with insulation, and we blocked off a stairway access, and no problem now. Came out this morning, water's fine. And so it was one of those things where if I was digging it myself today, that would be a bad thing, because I'd be alone. I got to milk, I got to feed, I got to do all this stuff, and my kids are kind of obligated to other things, and I would be on my own. I was lucky it happened while the boys were home, because they don't mind digging, and then I was able to kind of step back and drink coffee, which is very important to them and me and my wife. So I was able to do that. But for me today, I'm thinking the greatest threat that I'm facing over the next 10 days with this extreme cold that's coming in, which really is not supposed to hit us. I mean, we're going to get double digits. We're going to get teens, maybe single digits. For us up here in the north, we put everything together for that. We bury our water lines deep. We protect them. We're always thinking water's got to flow. And if it freezes up someplace, it could be frozen till spring. That's happened to me before here, to the house, actually. It froze up in March, and we were without water at the house, sadly, for about 6 weeks. That was rough. And I didn't know where the ice plug was, but I found it. And I prevented that from happening again. I don't know how that didn't happen long time ago when the old people lived here, but what happened was we had a thaw, water ran off the roof, and then it soaked down along the foundation, and then it got cold again, so the cold followed that water down to where the water pipe comes into the basement. And it was down 3 feet. But because there was water, there was something for the cold to travel in. If it's dry ground, there's an insulation barrier, and the cold won't go through it. It would have to be very, very cold. So all I did was put a piece of roofing steel over it, so the water that comes down off the roof, if that were to happen again, will roll out past where the water line is, right? So it was a pretty easy fix. And we haven't had a problem with it since. Now, I won't say we had no water in the house. Every day, I had to roll a hose out to this building so that we would have water for cooking and the toilet and taking showers and all that stuff. So we did have it. It was just a workaround that was a real pain. So I don't want that to happen again. As far as beef cows go, they drink out of a pond. We break ice for them, which if the ice gets to be 3 inches thick, we break it. They kind of keep it open, and that's pretty easy. The milk cows is a different story. They're getting warm water that we pump up out of the ground. You might think it's cold, but it's 61 degrees when it comes out of the ground. And that keeps their tank open. We'll pump out what they need daily. And that keeps their their tank open. You know, you put 60 degrees in there, and then it has to make it all the way down to 31 before it's gonna freeze. So that takes time, and usually we're ahead of it most of the time. But the thing that I'm concerned about is losing power. So if we lose power, what won't work around here is what you have to look at, is what I'm looking at. Okay, if I lose power, I don't have the ability to pump water to the cows. There's 10 of them. They need 100 gallons a day, right? You figure 10 gallons per cow. These are my milk cows. Beef cows, they can drink out of the pond. It's fine. And if there's no power, I can still break ice down there, because all you really need is a spud bar to do that. And so that's not hard. But the milk cows, worst case scenario, we could bring water from the pond up here and fill their trough. Worst case scenario. Don't want to do that because it's down the hill, but we could. You know, we could put a tank in the back of a pickup and then fill that tank with buckets and then bring it up and run it into their tank. We could. But before I would do that, I would run the generator. I have a diesel generator. It's a real nice one. And I could run that and run the pump. And that generator will also run the coffee maker, which is very important. And it'll run the water heater in the house, which is electric, which that's a tragedy. I should not have that. I should have all my hot water coming from my wood stove that's running, but I just haven't got around to building that out yet in 20 years here. But I will. So what am I going to do? I'm going to get my generator oil checked. I'm going to put a preheat on it. I'm going to put a heater on it and let it heat up a little bit because it's so cold out. I'm going to make sure the diesel fuel in it is topped off. I'm going to put winter diesel fuel in it. It's got summer diesel fuel in it now, which doesn't have the additive to keep any condensation from icing up. And then I'm going to let it run for an hour. I'm going to put some load on it and make sure that it's running good and there's no leaks or anything like that. It's pretty easy to do. And that way I have peace of mind to know that if power goes down, generator comes on, we pump the water that we need, we run the coffee pot, and then we shut her down. I shouldn't keep saying that about the coffee pot, because we actually have a coffee pot that you can just set on the wood stove and make coffee. And it works really good. So, I mean, you got to cover your bases. That's necessary. Yeah, so things been moving along here. It's wintertime. We are getting ready for spring. I got to have a couple of things done by spring. So there is no rest for the weary. We are running the operation, feeding the animals, getting the cows' milk, getting the milk distributed, getting animals processed. We've got 2 pigs to butcher this week, and a cow, and a beef cow. So that's on the schedule this week. And all of our free time in between that, we have to do homeschool and we have to do construction. Luckily, Matt's been helping me, and he's just a wonder. I mean, he puts that 8th grade shop class to full capacity and makes things happen around here. Really appreciate his help. But what's coming up in the spring that I think will be of interest, I think we're out ahead of this. If you look what's going on in the country and you hear the rhetoric coming out of leadership and non-leadership, right? Leadership being the new administration coming in, non-leadership, the old administration going out, and those freaks. But you're seeing opportunity coming for small farms, and that opportunity I just put in one category, and it's called animal fats, right? Big war on seed fats or seed oils, you know, like Crisco and Wesson and all that. There's a war on that stuff. That stuff you really shouldn't be eating if you want to stay healthy. You should be eating animal fats. You know, we were sold a bill of goods 40 years ago that animal fats cause heart disease. It's actually not true. Animals were put here for us, and we're supposed to be utilizing their fats. A lot of animal fats are just wasted, or fed to dogs, or fed back to other animals. It's a tragedy. Not here. We haven't been doing that. We've been understanding that animal fat's are very important. Milk is an animal fat, very important. Whole milk, raw milk. When milk leaves certain dairies and goes and is processed, what you get left, what is left from that is white, and then they have to fortify it with this, that, and the other thing, and it's sweet, and kids like to drink it, but is it milk? I say no. I say no. It's like if a mother was suckling a child and you said, wait a minute, we've got to take that milk and boil it and then we'll take the cream out of it and then we'll put this in it and that in it, and the kid won't drink it. Put some sugar in there for it. You know, that's not really the same thing. And it's the same thing with milk that you get that's pasteurized, homogenized, and all that stuff. It's not really the same. You want that whole milk. You want that whole fat in there. You want grass-fed. You want to stay away from any of the glyphosate-ridden milk that's being produced. Glyphosate is not good for the human body. It is just not good. It is a herbicide, and there's a lot of herbs in your digestive tract, and you don't want to risk those herbs with glyphosate. Glyphosate is Roundup, if you don't know. That's one of the commercial names. Also, animal fats like lard and tallow. Lard being pig fat, and there's a lot of bad mojo going on around about pigs. Oh, you shouldn't eat pigs. This, that. If they're raised properly, it's safe. Same thing with tallow. Tallow is beef fat or bovine fat. And there's a lot more fat in that animal than you want on your steak, so it's trimmed off. And up till now, it's just been pitched. They just don't do anything with it. They just throw it away. But it needs to be rendered down, and then it takes the place of Crisco and all those other things that you normally, and Pam, you spray in the pan and all that. I've used that stuff. I've used Crisco. My mother used it. We didn't have butter in our house. We had margarine in our house because it was more healthy. What is margarine? I don't even know. But I didn't like it. I like butter. But butter from the store I'm not too keen on because of the glyphosate factor and what they put in it and what they take out of it. I want butter to be whole butter, natural, from grass-fed cows. That's what I prefer, if you can get it. The whole grass-fed concept is something that needs to be thought about hard, because grasses grow in our environment. They're designed to be here and cover the ground. And cattle like to eat grass. They'll go to grass before they'll go to most other things. Silage is a strange thing. Silage is when you see these beautiful fields of corn that's all the exact same height and straight rows and everything. It looks like a beautiful thing. But what they do is they go through there and they chop that. They have a machine that goes through and chops that all up. And what is in that, it could be problematic. And that is, notice you don't see any weeds between the rows. That's because they've gone through and they've sprayed glyphosate directly on that corn. But the corn is genetically modified so that glyphosate won't kill it. Right? Glyphosate is like Agent Orange, it's not good stuff, but it kills everything else but doesn't kill the corn, the genetically modified corn. But what it does, it soaks into that corn, and then they go through and they chop it, and then they put it in great big bags or in bunks, and then it ferments, so it makes sort of like a pickly fermented thing. But what about that glyphosate that's in there? You know, when the animals eat that, does it concentrate in their fat? And is their milk their fat? I would say yes. I would say yes. And you can trust the science if you want, but I don't trust the science no more. I mean, they've lost my trust. So I'm going to go with the grass-fed because there's nothing on it. We don't use any chemicals or anything. And there's a bunch of guys that do it. There's lots and lots of people, and I see it really coming in the future. Grass-fed is going to be big. Grass-fed, grass-finished. The animals really aren't designed to eat the concentrations of grain that we're feeding to them. And we're not really designed to eat that grain. You notice if you eat a lot of breads and stuff, you'll get sore joints and you'll put on a lot of weight. So the breads and stuff, not good. I like it too, but and I like the taste of Cheetos, but I know that I'm not supposed to be eating them. I just know. So if the animals are fed correctly, things will go well. So anyway, I don't know. I'm just yakking here. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to run the generator and make sure everything's going fine. Milking is coming. There are going to be a lot of farms, small farms, that are going to see that milking cows, 10 cows, is a very profitable thing. It's very doable. The market is there. It's there. People want it. And I believe what I see coming in my future is offering weekend instructionals, like weekend immersions into this. And so we built the milk house. Matt built the milk house. Is that blood? It is. Where's that coming from? Oh. And above the milk house, we built an apartment. And it's not finished out yet. It's got a long ways to go, but it is dried in. And I believe that that apartment there above the milk house, we will call the milk house suite. And I could see a time coming where a person might contact this farm and say, I want to learn everything there is to know about doing herd shares and running a small dairy. And I will say, I'm just the guy to talk to. You will come and stay here Friday and Saturday night, right above the milk house. And then you will milk, you will process the milk. We will sit down right at this table here in the cafe/store, and we'll talk all about it. You will sit over there and take notes, and we will tell you what we know. And if you go back to your farm and you duplicate it, I think you stand a better chance of making it than not. I see that coming. I see that coming. But it's not going to be the shotgun approach where we have 20 people come and spend a few hours talking about it. It needs to be more intentional. It needs to be more precise. It needs to be more one-on-one. It's sort of like loading your car for a big, long trip. If you take 10 minutes to do it, and you didn't think, well, I'd like to drink water while I'm driving. Oh, that's in the back. You'll have to stop. You know, it needs to be done intentionally with thought and conversation and quality time. Quality time. You know, you could get a book and read about it. Yeah, that would help. But to immerse yourself in it and to be able to think back to, oh, I remember 10 years ago when I took that instructional at Baker's. Yeah, they did this. I didn't understand why, but now I do. I think I would really appreciate that if I could go back in time and get an instructional on a lot of the things that we've learned how to do. I think it would really help me. I got an instructional from a guy named Dan Isaacson when I lived out in Montana, and he was real backed up on work, and I needed some pigs butchered, and he said, "Oh, just shoot them at your place and haul them up." And I did, and he said, "You're going to help me with this." And I was like, "Well, okay." So I helped him, and he showed me how to do it. He showed me. And then I went on to develop my own pig processing business, which led to my beef processing business and chicken processing business. And so being shown how to do something and setting, I think it's more than just being shown. If you, let's say this was a Friday, Saturday thing, and you set time aside on your calendar 6 months in advance, you set it aside and you say, I'm going to be at Baker's for 2 days. And the decks are cleared and you can focus your attention on just that. And teamwork is everything to me. It really is. I've found that teamwork is where the special sauce is. And you have a husband and wife that come and take this, and then they can talk about it on the way there. Maybe they won't talk much on the way here, but on the way home they'll be talking, right? And they get to like have a couple meals with us and ask us questions. Because okay, milking cows, okay, you think that, okay, I know what that is. Well, there's a lot of components to milking cows that you don't know about until you get there, right? A lot of little things. All right, you're gonna have your children in the milking schedule. They're gonna help. Whoa, that's a couple chapter subject in the book. You know, when you have a 12-year-old child milking, well, you not only have to think about can that kid do it, you got to think about what else could the kid do while they're out there alone. You know, you got to think about that. So there's a lot to think about. And I think a person that would come to that tutorial, or whatever we're going to call it, would be able to bring us what they have in facilities now. And I can tell you from experience, when we first started milking cows, we milked in a different part of the barn than what the barn was designed for. How was I supposed to know? I didn't know. I didn't grow up farming. I didn't know. And it wasn't until somebody was here, an old fella, that said, "Oh yeah, Uncle Ben used to milk cows down here." And I said, "He milked cows down here? Why would he milk them here in the basement? That's where you milk the cows." "Why is that?" "You just do." And so then we started to figure out how things work. And then once you pick that trail up, you start learning other things. But we milk cows in the top part of the barn, just 1 or 2 or 3 cows. And we were doing herd shares, actually, 4 or 5 years. And then it was only just last summer that we fully built out the old milk parlor and was able to start milking down there. Now we bring all the cows in at the same time, milk them, and then where the milk house is, I didn't know that was a milk house. I thought it was just someplace that they built on. Maybe it was a chicken house for all I knew. I had no even known. All the concrete was broke up. I made a little shop out of it for a while. I had some toolboxes in there, and then the roof started leaking real bad, so I kind of canned that. And the last 10 years, the water has run through the roof and just right onto the concrete floor. The concrete floor was all broken up. I wasn't worried about it. We weren't using it for anything. Now it's got a new floor in it. It's got a new roof on it. There's windows. It's 55 degrees in there as we speak. In here where I'm sitting, it's got to be 75 degrees. And it's 15 outside, so we've come a long way. But so I'm seeing a tutorial like that. If my job was to train somebody and then when they're leaving, me and Jill get together and say, what do you think their percentage is of making it? The more I can pour into them, the better the chances are that they can make a go of it. And like, what are we working towards here? If you've got a small piece of property, it could be 5 acres. You can run a dairy on 5 acres. What does milk go for? Just rule of thumb, $10 a gallon. Some places it's 15. Some places people, like the Amish, sell it for like 6. I don't know why they do it. It's because they're Amish, I suppose. Must be part of their doctrine or something. We can do it cheaper. But we sell it for 10 and we're sold out all the time. And if you run the numbers, I'll just give you this little, a cow, if someone were to ask me, well, how much milk does a cow give a day? Well, that's like saying, how much milk does a woman give a day in her lactation? Think about it that way. When she first gives birth, her lactation is real heavy. Real heavy. Sometimes they even have to resort to alternative means to pump it out and, make ice cream out of it and stuff like that. Ben and Jerry's, right? Same thing with a cow. When they first freshen, when they first have a calf, their lactation is heavy, heavy. I've got one cow that gives me about 7.5 gallons after she has a calf. And we only milk once a day. You can make the choice to milk twice a day and you can get more. But for me, milking once a day makes sense because I have other work to do during the day and I don't want to have to stop to milk the second time. And people have said all kinds of stuff that, well, they'll dry off sooner. And okay, but that's the choice that we've made because we have other things going on. I've heard it all, and people just say stuff that they heard on the internet like they're pros. But that's what we've seen is we milk once a day and we're fine. We're doing fine with it. But the number that I think I would say is look at 3 gallons because she'll start off giving you 6 or 7. And by the end of her lactation, which is when you're going to dry her off because she's getting ready to calf again, and you want to do that, we say 2 months. 2 months. Other people will say, oh no, it's got to be 3 months. I say 2, and it's worked out good for us. That's what we're going to do. But by the end, she might be giving you a gallon. That's okay. She still needs to be milked. A gallon's a gallon. It takes 2 minutes to milk her out. Is that worth $10? Yeah, sure it is. And we milk them off when we dry them off before they're getting ready to calf. We know that they're going to calf. Then they're not coming in anymore. We're going to let them use up the fat that they've accumulated in their system to nurture that calf inside. And then when they do calf, we'll milk them immediately to set the level that they're going to give. And we take the calf immediately, and then we're bottle feeding the calf. She forgets about the calf forgets about her. I know it sounds cruel, but I'm telling you, it's a lot less cruel to do it that way because if the calf is with the mother for a week, you almost can't get that calf away from the mother. And if you do, that calf is going to be quite upset. For a week, that calf is going to be bellowing, and mom is going to be bellowing too. Like, where's my calf? You took my calf. Whereas if you take it immediately, she's like, calf? What calf? Where's the hay pile? That's all I care about is the hay pile. That's all. So they're not like humans. It's not like humans. So the number you want to look at is 3 gallons. If you milk 5 cows, just do the math on it. If you milk 10 cows, do the math. Figure it out. So if you were if you wanted 30 gallons of milk per day, you would milk 10 cows. Some of them are going to be given you, and you can set up your schedule however you want, but their lactation is, they're about the same as a woman, actually, right? So you just figure it out and decide if it's something that you want to do, and if you would make enough money doing that to float your homestead. Obviously, you can do something else. Milking in the morning, is when we do it, is about a 2-man-hour process. One guy's milking, the other guy is processing the milk and cleaning up. And then we're done for the day. We're done for the day with the milk. The rest of the day is, well, the cows got to have hay. I can see from here that they got to have hay. So I'll start the tractor up, put the spear on, take a bale out. Okay, they got hay. They got to have water. We already ran the water. So they're good to go. They're going to stand around, eat hay, and do cow things all day, which is not much in the wintertime. They just kind of stand around, and then they'll come in, and they'll lay around. So we'll bed for them. It's not a continuous thing during the day. It's, okay, it's done for the day. It's done for the day. And generally, if I say goodnight to them on my walk around, and their ears are up and they're happy and they're looking around, generally when I come out in the morning, it'll be the same thing. So I know I'm going on, but I haven't talked to you in a long time. All right, so that's what's coming. I haven't formalized it or anything, and I don't really have a lesson plan, but I think I could put it together quickly, and it would just be, as we're doing what we do every day, at the end of that process, you would stop and say, okay, this is what we did, and this is why we did it, right? But you'll actually be doing it as it's happening, or observing it as it's going, right? But in that period, there would be 2 milkings happen, and you would be actually doing the work, actually doing it. Same as what we do with hog processing. We'll demonstrate it first, and then stand right there while you do it, and then walk away, and then you get to do it again, and you get to do it again and again, and you become proficient at that one step. Milking cows, like everything else, is a compilation of steps, and you master them a little bit at a time. A little bit at a time. Okay, I'm not real good at washing out bottles. You're going to get plenty of practice washing out bottles, but that is part of it. It's a lot. It's not high tech. It's not like you need a 4-year degree to do it. Matter of fact, that would just be a hindrance, because your head would be full of a bunch of garbage that doesn't even matter. A lot of it is horse sense. When I say goodnight to my cows at night, that's part of it. I'm looking at them. Their noses are shiny. Their ears are up. Their eyes are bright. That's a healthy cow. I'm not determining whether it's a healthy cow by taking a blood sample and sending it into some lab. You don't do that. You can if you want, but I'm not going to do that. And we're the customer that drinks the milk first. I drink the milk every day, twice a day, and I have it in my coffee. I love cow's milk. Cow's milk is one of those things, that scenario we talk about. Well, if I was stuck on a desert island and I could only have one thing to drink and one thing to eat the rest of my life, what would it be? Oh, cherry Coke for sure. And pizza. No, I don't think so. I would want whole cow's milk cold. I like it cold. Kids like it warm. I like it cold. I wonder why that is. They like it warm. I think it's an age thing. And beef. T-bones. Yeah, I could live on it. All right, I'm going to go. I'm getting blabby. All right. Remember, anyone can farm. Now is the time to start thinking about spring.